Hello, now our sessions are always good, but tonight we have an extra special one. It's with the San Francisco band Deerhoof. They've redesigned 7 of their songs for us and done cover versions of a further 2. And all I'll say is I think they're one of the best live bands I've ever seen. Well, from one San Francisco band to another, it's the quartet Deerhoof, who have been on our radar for a while with their off-kilter staccato pop and concentrated songs, and of course the charming breathy vocals of Satomi Matsuzaki. So we jumped at the chance to get them into our Maida Vale studios while they were on tour here in Europe, and they proved what a great live band they are. Let's jump right in. Here are Deerhoof and This Magnificent Bird Will Rise. Right, we're very pleased to be sitting opposite Satomi and Greg from Deerhoof. Greg, tell us about the lineup of the band. Who does what, and how did you all meet?
Well, usually the way we do it, I play drums, Satomi plays guitar and sings, Chris plays bass, and John plays guitar. But, I don't know, sometimes Chris sings, sometimes I sing a little bit, sometimes Chris and Satomi switch the guitar and bass. For this session that we've done here for the BBC, Satomi's playing drums on one song, Chris is playing drums on one song,
It's organised attention deficit disorder, basically, isn't it?
It's not that we have attention deficit disorder, but we're concerned that perhaps some of our listeners do. So we want to make sure that.
I've got to ask you about your name, because you're not to know this, but Mark and I have a rather pathetically childish liking of names involving small animals. Deerhoof, tell us about that. Why did you call yourselves Deerhoof?
I don't know. Do you remember?
The name was already there before I joined. So.
Right, that's true. In a way, it was there before I joined, too, because the person who created the band started it as just a solo, his free improvisation-based solo. He had a...
and who was this? And what
this was a guy named Rob Fisk. He was in the band until 1999, and he kind of started it. He did all the artwork up till that point, and still does some of the artwork sometimes.
So you're still friendly?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And he has a label now called Free Porcupine Society that has released the LP version of a couple of our CDs. He's a really, really interesting person. And the band he has now is called 7 Year Rabbit Cycle.
He's obsessed with like animal.
Yeah, Deerhoof,
Yeah.
Rabbit Cycle.
And like
We've
not
gotta get
very
into-
like flashy animals.
Right.
Kind of. It's
Kind of
nice.
brown
brown. Dull.
Quite a fondness for those yourself, Mark, I know.
Now, your musical sound is very distinctive, and one of the many things that characterises it is the sort of extraordinary dynamic level of what you do. The fact that you'll go from extreme noise to quiet within the space of a bar, even. I mean, how did that come about, and how do you work out the music that you play?
The way we work it out, I mean, we have no plan beforehand at all. We have no idea what it's going to be before we really start working on a song, like being able to play it. I mean, somebody will write a song. All four of us write songs for the band, so
So do you each bring in your song, or do you?
Yeah. But once the band sort of gets a hold of it, it's kind of like, okay, any, too specific of any preconceived idea sort of has to get thrown out the window, and it gets changed a lot. And we don't, sit down and plan out like, okay, we're going to make this song really dynamic and, let's get really quiet here and loud there. It's just every song seems to have its own rules or something, or its own system. And the song seems to tell us the way that it wants to be played. And there are some songs that we try to play very flat, as far as the dynamics. And then other songs just seem to be crying out for, more extreme, I guess.
Well, let's talk about specific songs.
Okay.
This Magnificent Bird Will Rise. Satomi, tell us about that song.
I guess that has lots of dynamics, but one of the reasons I think it's just because my voice is kind of quiet, and so it's just we are trying to adjust so that everybody can hear my voice, and also we can also play really intense and like kind of bombastic or something.
And how is this version different to the one on record, on disc?
I think that probably on a lot of our recordings, like a lot of bands, there'll be lots of layers, there'll be overdubs and things, and like, that guitar didn't quite sound good, so let's add a second guitar, that kind of thing. And of course, there was no chance to do that today, which is also part of the charm of it and the fun of it. So, but I think, when we recorded it, I think it may have been the first time that we ever played through the song in its entirety. Like, a lot of times we'll figure out how to play the song really quickly. We'll be rushed for some reason. We'll just have a few minutes in the studio or something. Okay, let's make the most of it. Record everything, every idea that somebody might have, And so it was really just a run-through. And we didn't have much chance to mix it either. So then a lot of our songs are like this, where we'll take about 5 minutes to record it, about 2 hours to mix what we recorded, and then I think in the case of that song took the next 2 years adding overdubs and trying to edit it or find different ways to make it work.
So these versions of the songs that you've recorded for us, are they very different from the way... Do you play them differently every time?
Yeah.
we seem to change all the time. Like we find we don't like this anymore, so let's change it this way and that way. We arrange all the time.
So Spiral Golden Town, which has quite a strong kind of structure to it. I mean, did you mess around with that one?
Yeah, because none of us really even hardly play on the recorded version. It was really just something that I sort of put together from, sort of like fake string sounds on a keyboard, or I took some samples from records of like a violin playing one note and then it sort of pitch shifted around. It's basically like a fake orchestra or something like that. So it really sounds absolutely nothing like the real band, or really like any band, I guess. But then we were like, John just started playing it on guitar one day at practice, and we were like, let's try it. And so we figured out a way to actually play it with the band. So that one, I think, probably sounds totally different.
There must be a very strong, almost intuitive understanding of each other as musicians to be able to sustain that level of uncertainty in your performance.
Yeah. It's hard to say because, I feel really lucky. I hope we all feel pretty lucky. I feel really lucky to have found Chris, John, and Satomi to play in the band with. And I do feel like, when one of us has an idea, the other three might not understand it right away, but everybody's willing to try and understand it. And so we're willing to, go the distance to try and like discover, okay, this person has an idea that's somewhere from their imagination that even they don't understand, even they can't describe in words, and we're going to try and find out what that's about and figure out a way to play it. But it's we have our ups and downs or whatever. I mean, there's definitely some days, maybe you're catching us on a good day on songs that we've prepared for for this session, but we also have just as many days where we cannot agree. We have no idea what anybody else is in the band is thinking, and
stuck for a week just talking about one song.
Yeah, exactly. That really happens a lot.
Well, we've barely started. That's the first two tracks of Deerhoof's wonderful 9-song session for us. The first track they played was This Magnificent Bird Will Rise, and that one you just heard was Spiral Golden Town, and they'll be back soon.
I have to say, I think I prefer the versions of these live songs to the album ones.
Yeah, I know what you mean. They do actually have a sort of freshness and sort of sound clarity that the album doesn't have to the same degree.
Yeah. There's some scene in San Francisco at the moment, isn't there?
I
We
know.
went there with Mixing It 12 years ago, but this sort of new angle on rock has really sprung up since then.
It's amazing how much stuff we end up playing without even knowing it's from San Francisco, obviously.
I mean, not only Matt Moss, who we played earlier, but John Vanderslice, who we've had in session, and of course, our session people today, Deerhoof, who are Greg Saunier on drums, Satomi Mitsuzaki vocals, Chris Cohen bass, and John Dieterich on guitars. And they all play other things as well, but those are their main instruments. I asked Satomi to tell us about the next piece, which is called Flower.
Flower, I was just singing about flower or something one day. Just came out naturally.
I think, yeah, John made up the song, but maybe didn't have a melody. But he just started playing it on the guitar. He had the chorus, do, 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 do.
Yeah.
And then Satomi just started singing along. I think what it was, actually, and this is the way a lot of our songs have been created. Basically, I think Satomi was making fun of John, making fun of the song, and just kind of mocking it, because she thought it sounded dumb. And so she'd start singing something just to make fun of it. And then everybody was like, that's it, that's perfect. That's happened like 15 different times,
What about Right, spelt with about 10 R's from Runners 4?
That one's same. Like I was
Yeah.
mocking the da 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 da, and then I thought right.
So you like these sort of simple melodies? That's your influence?
Yeah, it's very instinct. Like, yeah, I don't think too much. It sounds good, and it's fun to sing. Yeah.
Yeah, that song was really a collaboration between... Chris came up with the bass pattern, and I think John made up most of the guitar part. And then Satomi came up with the vocal parts.
3 tracks from Deerhoof there. First you heard Flower, then Dinner for Two, then the one that Mark pointed out is Right, spelt with about 10 R's. And we've still got more to come. It's fantastic. This session just goes on and on. Back to Deerhoof now, and the big surprise of their session for me was when they suddenly broke into a note-perfect version of the old Canned Heat tune, Going Up the Country. At first, I thought they were mucking about, but no, they meant it, as they were very keen to point out.
Oh, man, I mean, we're just all, insane fans. And I have to say,
I'm not insane fan.
Oh, sorry, Satomi is a sane fan. I imagine many bands are probably like this, or just any kind of grouping of people. We just come from very different backgrounds, and, we're somewhat different ages and stuff. For instance, Satomi had never played music in her life before joining this band, whereas some of us, maybe took guitar lessons for years or had been to music school. It's just this kind of like everybody's like completely different. So sometimes it's very hard for us to agree on something that we all like or that we all want to do. So when suddenly this friend of ours, Tim Barnes, gave us a Canned Heat mix CD that he'd burned for us while we were on tour once, we put it on in the car and everybody's mouth just dropped open, and we were all the more stunned that in fact all 4 of us really liked it. So we thought that, when we thought like, okay, we need to learn some cover songs for the BBC, that was one of the first things that sprang to mind. I think that his singing, I don't even know the guy's name, the original vocalist from the band, is just so, I think it connects a lot to the way we often approach our singing, which is he sings in an extremely plain way without a lot of gymnastics or embellishment, and he often sings just sort of right on the beat, without any syncopations or jazziness or something, which actually I think sounds very odd in any kind of rock and roll style music, because you're so used to the opposite, either a lot of shouting or a lot of embellishment. So I think just instantly we kind of identified with that singing style, and I always feel like Canned Heat is actually a very sort of slavish kind of band, that really sort of imitated certain blues models. What's that guy's name? What's that guy, Chris? Who he sings like Skip James, exactly. I mean, I think his voice imitates Skip James's kind of falsetto so much and almost very slavishly that we thought it would be kind of appropriate to play the Canned Heat cover in as slavish a way as we possibly could, like every note exactly the same.
Never
3 more from Deerhoof there. The last one was Your Hour 2, and before that you heard All Rise. And they started, of course, with that immortal cover version of Going Up the Country by Canned Heat, which is... Blimey, I mean, Canned Heat couldn't have played it better than that.
They're very fine musicians, but for me, the guitar playing of John Dieterich stands out. He reminds me a bit of Johnny Greenwood, the guitarist in Radiohead, with his range of textures and chords.
He can certainly turn on the big rock moment when he wants to, can't he?
It's time for our last piece in our session with the San Francisco alt rockers Deerhoof. And I think this one typifies their whole approach. It's a wonderfully compact and imaginative reworking of the old Herman's Hermits song, There's a Kind of Hush. I asked Greg Saunier, who moves to guitar, with Satomi playing the apocalyptic drum beat, how they came up with this one.
I've actually never even heard the original. We were walking down the sidewalk in San Francisco where we live, and the neighborhood that Satomi and I live in, the Tenderloin, has just... it's really known for having a lot of trash on the streets. And so one day there was this pile of records sitting there, and one of them was an 11-record box set, Percy Faith, doing all these late 60s pop hits. And I remember that we brought it into our apartment and listened to every side. We really liked it. So but there was this one song that really stuck out to me, and I'd never heard it before. It was Kind of Hush, and I was just like, this song's incredible. And the more I just was obsessed with it, I was playing it over and over. And the more I listened to it, I'm like, these words are so strange because, they make sense as a love song, but I also thought that they kind of like, if you just removed a couple little lines or half of a sentence here, half of a sentence there, it seemed to be about something completely else, like this sort of kind of a post-apocalyptic kind of scenario where, there's like only 2 people left on Earth, and there's just this complete hush. It's completely dead other than that, and there's just these 2 people talking to each other, for the rest of eternity or something. They'll be completely alone, forever. So I just thought that the song already seemed that way, so
you've gone for the post-apocalyptic drum sound almost.
yeah. Actually, that's the handiwork of the BBC engineers.
I think you asked that because you asked me to play that really loud.
Yeah.
But then I can't play that loud, and so needs some kind of boost or something.
Right.
There's a kind of hush all over the world tonight. All over the world, you can hear the sound. Just the 2 of us and nobody else inside, and nobody else who can hear the sound. Listen very carefully, closer now, and you will see. It isn't a dream. The only sound that you will hear is when I whisper in your ear. Forever and ever.
And that's it. I'm sorry to say that's the very last track in our Deerhoof session. That was their version of the old Herman Hermits tune, There's a Kind of Hush. Our thanks to them for coming in for a truly marvellous session. Now, thanks to the fact that they played no fewer than 9 songs for us, the playlist is unusually long and I suppose therefore unusually desirable this week. So to get it, these are the usual instructions. Email us.